being attached to whether people like you or not, never mind everybody likes you or not, is a terrible place to be.
Hello and welcome to the Remarkable CEO Podcast, a show dedicated to chiropractors who want to transform their job into a business so that they can have a remarkable practice as part of a remarkable life, not instead of one. With your hosts, Dr. Pete Camiolo and Dr. Stephen Franson.
What's up, Remarkables? Welcome to another episode of the Remarkable CEO Podcast. I'm Dr. Stephen Franson.
And I'm Dr. Pete Camiolo.
Hey guys, we're here in the Easter season. We are in the studio, inspired as always, but let's just call it a little extra inspired today, Dr. Pete. We got a lot going on. It's Easter weekend. Kids coming home. Kids are home. You might hear some kids in the background. My boy's coming back from Liberty University, and I'm so excited about that. And just getting my family together. I just love celebrating together as a family. Just so awesome. We've got lots of reasons to celebrate this weekend. One of those is Dr. Pete's birthday is tomorrow. So happy birthday, Dr. Pete. We love it and appreciate you so much, my brother. You're just such an awesome guy, just an awesome guy. This is a big deal. Everybody should celebrate Dr. Pete's birthday. So that's awesome, man. We love you. All right. So not only do we love you, we like you. And that's the perfect segue into today's conversation on part 2 on leadership, right? So we started a conversation in our last episode. We talked about leadership and how there's different relationships you can choose for your team. And those choices are critical because they don't only drive your outcomes, but they'll drive your experience, right? They determine your experience you have as a practice owner, as a leader of a practice, right? So today we're going to continue that conversation. It's a part 2 conversation about how to lead your patients, right? And being very deliberate about choosing how do you lead your patients? In other words, who are you going to be to your patients, right? Like what is your identity with your patients? And I'm going to speak from struggle here, man, because Dr. Pete, I really struggled here the first several years, first 2, 3, maybe 4 years into practice, where I just had this terrible attachment to people liking me. I wanted everybody to like me, right? I wanted my team to like me. I wanted my patients to like me. And what I learned very, very quickly and the hard way is I could get people to like me to about 300 a week, right? And then the wagon wheel started coming off, right? The team got a little bigger, the patient base got a little bigger, and just winning others over was no longer good enough. And I had to check myself, and I had to recognize, man, there's no way I'm going to be able to realize my vision and serve my mission and manifest my vision. What God had called me to do was going to require me to make that ascension in those relationships, right? So I recognized the hard way that being attached to whether people like you or not, never mind everybody likes you or not, is a terrible place to lead from.
Yeah, Dr. Stephen, first of all, thank you for the birthday wishes. And it's just an honor for me to be able to, I love being alive. I'm very grateful for my life, thankful for my parents. I'm grateful for you, all the people that we get to work with, the people we get to serve, being a chiropractor. I'm so thankful. I didn't grow up in a chiropractic family. So thankful that, we were introduced to the principles of chiropractic, and I was able to respond to the call, as you said, and choose to be a chiropractor. So I want to speak this in because I think it's going to help make the point that I think around the conversation we want to have today. So one of the things that I know for me that enabled me to ascend very quickly in my leadership of my patients was I anchored my role as a chiropractor to my story. And my story was actually rooted in pain, and the pain came from a lack of knowledge and a lack of knowing and not knowing the root cause. And so I came in very, very early in my journey of being a chiropractor. And by the way, if you want to listen to a series, Dr. Stephen, I just want to say this while we're talking about this, because if you're a chiropractor listening to this, we did a series on the ascensions of the chiropractor. We talked about basically going from a manipulator to an adjuster to a chiropractor to a mentor and leader. I love that episode. It's a really good one. I think it pairs really well with what we're talking about here today in your ascension. So just if you are a podcast, one of our listeners, first of all, shout out to you. Thanks for being a listener. We really appreciate you. We hope you continue to gain value. But if you're new, welcome to the show. And also, hey, we've got a bunch of episodes before this one. So that episode, I don't know the number of it, but I do know it's a really good episode that speaks to, I think what we're talking about here is really how do you lead the patients? And if you're a chiropractor listening to this, that's a great episode. But it's also your team. But going back to what I was saying was, for me, it was I anchored to my story, which was my why, which for me, I'm not going to tell the story now, but ultimately my family went, let's say, the more traditional medical route for my brother's health conditions without getting results. And then we chose the chiropractic route and did things more naturally, and we got results. And so I would simply tell that story, but I told it from a place of great conviction, and immediately it shifted who I needed to be. In other words, by telling that story, was now accountable, because by sharing that story with conviction to my patient base, they now saw me in a different way. And then I got to decide who I was going to show up to be. And so as we begin this conversation today about overcoming the need to be liked and replacing that with the desire to be trusted, is you have to be anchored to the principle of what we do and why you do what you do. And you have to remain anchored. And Dr. Stephen, you and I talk about this, how if we didn't tell the story in any given week, we were like, I'm antsy, I'm shaking because I had to get this off my chest. I had to tell the chiropractic story. I have to share this. And so that, for me, it came back to every huddle, every shift. It was every report, right? It was every body signals workshop. It was every time. It was like, you told the story. You tell the story. You tell the truth. And when you do, when you share it, you now are accountable to what you said. So you have the opportunity to show up at that level, because that now is the standard that you set. The message that you told, if you told them, now you show up that way. Now I'm going to be able to be that person that's going to lead you and hold you accountable. So I was able to, and you were now able to move from being the need to be liked to the question is, will you trust me enough to follow, right? And that to me is when we are anchored in the principle, we're anchored in the story, and we're willing to tell the people the truth in the story, unwatered down, shoot straight. You immediately move into a position where the standard has been set and the bar has been set, and now you have an opportunity to show up as the leader. So I know we're going to unpack this in a way, but for me, actually, that was the first thing that came to me when we were talking about this. Like, how do you make this? For me, it comes right back to your philosophy. It comes right back to the principle that we serve. And if you are truly telling the story and you are truly living it, and you're holding yourself and you're telling that story to your patients, I'm going to tell you something. You will be put in a position where you need to step it up. And we need to be in a position where we now are trusted.
Yeah, I love the metaphor of the anchor, right? Because ultimately that is what we're talking about here. Like, so we have to make this actionable, because this might be resonating with some people right now, being like, oh man, you nailed me today. Right. So if we hit you between the eyes today with this message, good. That's exactly where we're aiming. Okay. So if we're speaking to you right now and you're like, oh, feeling convicted on this, is like, I'm attached to people liking me, and that is my leadership style. I can get people to like me, and man, if they don't like me, that's what really bothers me. So it's really the behaviors that come out of that is like, man, maybe you dilute down the patient experience during the consultation, or maybe it's the report of findings. You want to make people comfortable. This is not about making people comfortable. Okay. So we're not talking about an evolution in people's health and healthcare. We're talking about a revolution. Revolutions aren't comfortable. So if you're trying to make these experiences lukewarm and a jacuzzi experience so everybody's comfortable, you need to check yourself on that, right? So at the end of the day, maybe it's your recommendations for care are dilute, right? So maybe you're like, man, I know this is what they need, but I don't think they'll go for it, right? So maybe it's your scheduling process or policies. Maybe it's generally your policies. Maybe you look at expectations and agreements, and when you're putting guardrails down for your patients, they're just suggestions. They're not really policies. Maybe it's a wish list of behavior, right? So when you tell them that, we have a great workshop and you should really come and it's really neato, I'm going to teach everything you never wanted to know about chiropractic. Maybe you need to check yourself on that, versus like, I know what's going to happen in this workshop. We're going to shift your paradigm, which is going to really organize the behaviors for you and your entire family for the rest of your life. Is that how you tell people that workshop is their next step? It's not an invitation or a suggestion. It's a recommendation. It is part of the care. Or maybe it's the follow through on compliance when you talk to people about don't miss or change your appointments. If you do, you make it up within 24 hours or the very next day at work, so you don't lose momentum, and you let people just get away with missing appointments because you just want them to like you. You don't want to make them uncomfortable or have to be that guy. Really? Okay. So people don't want to do x-rays or a progress exam, progress report, or re-exam. Really? They don't want, it's like, what are you doing? Like literally, what are they hiring you to do? Right? They're paying you, they're hiring you, they're trusting you to be their leader. Right? So the behaviors that I'm describing are the symptoms of you being anchored in the wrong place on the reef. Right. So I love the metaphor of the anchor because if you understand the way an anchor works, there's a chain with an anchor at the bottom of that you anchor, you fix the chain to the bottom. Right. So you set that anchor and that chain goes up to the surface where the boat sits on the surface, and it dictates where that boat's allowed to drift. Okay. And if you looked at it from a bird's eye view, there's a circle that boat can drift around in, and that's you. That's your behaviors. Okay. And the chain, the anchor is not going to let you get outside of that, right? That's the purpose of an anchor, right? So you're going to drift around inside of that circle. You get to operate right inside that circle, but not outside of it. So where you set your anchor, what you are attached to matters because it's going to dictate the behaviors on the surface. Okay, so those surface are going to drive our outcomes. So for me, I was anchored on, attached to, they have to like me. Okay. And I just recognize that's a terrible place to lead from. So I had to swim to the bottom, do the deep work, and yank that anchor out of the reef, move it over, and intentionally sink the anchor where I wanted it to be. And for me, that displacement, the yanking of the anchor and then resetting the anchor intentionally, I knew that I wanted to set the anchor in trust. Because I knew that if people trusted me, they would do what I told them to do. If they do what I tell them to do, they're going to get the results that they're wanting to get and they're looking for and they're hiring me for, and then they're going to love me. So I'm very happy to replace liking me with loving me, but my objective had to be I had to get them to trust me, Dr. Pete, because now trust drives behavior, behaviors drive outcomes.
I love the analogy of you swimming down and doing the deep work. I love that image. And I think that even if you think about, if you were to do that, like that's really challenging. So again, speaking to, if you're listening and you would identify as someone who needs to be liked and you just recognize yourself. And by the way, same, guilty as charged as well. I think for me in my story, and just, I had early coaching that I had spent quite a bit of time, energy, focus, and money getting early before I even opened my clinic, that really broke me in a way down so that I was able to enter into opening my practice a little bit more ready. But I invested a lot to get there. But with that, still struggling with the need to be liked, particularly by my colleagues probably and others in my life. But the patient relationship, doctor relationship, when you think about moving the anchor from like to trust, I think about, when I see the word liked, I see I look at it in terms of a container that is filled, or I look at it as actually an emptiness in the container. The container isn't filled, or it's filled with the wrong material. And so you have to actually replace what's in the container. So you might say, well, what is that void in my life? What is that in me that need to be liked? Where does that come from? And so what I go back to is an identity crisis. It's an identity issue. And I would say, as a chiropractor, if you were to say, well, how do I overcome this? Dr. Stephen, you said you pulled up the anchor and you put it down and need to be trusted. That's great. Well, how do I do it? And where I'm going to go is I'm going to go back to what I opened with, which is you have to be anchored in the principle. And when you're filled with the principles and the 33 principles, and you're filled with the understanding of God's laws of health and healing, and you meditate on those day and night, you focus on the truth and you let it fill you and in many ways consume you. It fills your tank. You are full of it. You enter into a situation so full that I don't have a void inside of me. I simply have to release what is inside of me. In other words, I'm not looking for you to come in and fill something that's a gap in me. I'm simply coming from the overflow of what I have to release it to you. This has nothing to do with being an extrovert and introvert. This has to do with being a full person. And so in order to build that level of trust, and so you have to be full. So what are you full of? Are you full of yourself? Are you full of serving others? Are you full of, I need to be liked, right? Or this desire to be trusted? And I found as a chiropractor where it's cut straight through, speaking to associates, your CAs, yourself, is you have to be rooted in the principle of what we do. And if you're not, then you're that boat that's not only not anchored, but guess what? When the winds come, you're going to get pulled and drop. Your boat is out to sea. So being rooted in the principle enables you to be trusted even in the midst of the struggle. Think about it. When the patient comes in and they have a challenge and you're not going to waver or wane, whether it was the compliance issue, the x-ray issue, or I'm not better yet issue, whatever the situation might be, or this named condition issue. Here, I got diagnosed with this. What are you going to do with it, doc? Are you anchored and rooted in the principle? That's where trust. So I had an opportunity, Dr. Stephen, to speak to 7 and 8-year-old boys the other day. It's baseball season, which is a wonderful thing for me as well. And so we were talking about confidence in the team because we're doing a lot of it's pre-season. So we're doing just lots of practices. And at the end of the practice, we were talking about confidence and they said, hey, Dr. Pete, what's the definition of confidence again? And I said, it's intense trust. And here I am talking to 7 and 8-year-olds. So I kind of let it rip for a couple of minutes there, but I was talking to them. I said, listen, how you build trust is first you have to build trust in yourself. And how do you build trust in yourself? It's training. So Dr. Stephen, if we want to go from being liked to being trusted, the first thing is you have to look at what is the culture in your office? Do you have a culture of training? Are you getting trained yourself? Are you continually submitting yourself into an environment where you're getting coached, you're getting training, you're getting developed? Because what that does is that actually forges inside of you. That will forge trust. Trust is forged through the challenges and through the struggle of life, of dealing with the stuff that's really going on, facing the facts, even though they may be brutal. And so it starts with self-leadership. It says, I'm going to do the work in me to work on myself so that I can have trust in myself. But we're a part of a team. So it starts with you got to work on you, and you got to be somebody that I can trust. You got to be somebody that you trust yourself. And I'm not saying you have your stuff together, because I'm the first person, Dr. Stephen, you and I are the first people to say, ain't got it all figured out. But we're working on it. We're committed to it, and we're committed to surrender and submit ourselves to places and people that are going to help us with that in our walk. But I'll say the other thing is, if you want to build a team and you want a team that's trustworthy, worthy of being trusted, then you have to do the work. And so what we teach is you got to train. And one of the fruits of training on your day 0, day 1, day 2, day 3, and all the things is that it's the invisible. It's the invisible part of what comes out of that, and it's trust. We talk about, I was able to deliver the script, and I did it in such an amazing way. But there's the intangible, right? 90% of communication is nonverbal. What does that mean? It's the intangible. Where does that come from? It came from when you checked that patient in, the way that you said, 3 people could say the same words, but when you said it, something was different about it. What was it? It was that I trusted what you said. I felt that you really believed what you said. I felt like you actually said it directly to me, and I felt like you cared. Where did that come from? Training. It's training. Training is how you build trust. You train. You train yourself, you train each other, and then you train. So I told the boys, I said, listen, some of you guys are going to strike out. Some of you guys are going to have a pop-up right to you, and you're going to miss it. Some of you are going to overthrow. Some of you are going to get caught stealing. You name the thing. Okay? Well, guess how you build trust and confidence in each other? When you're down, you say, hey, no, don't worry about it. You'll get them next time. It's going to be okay. We got this. You build each other up. You build that. We do that for our patients. We tell them, hey, I screwed up. I didn't do the 3 legs of the stool. I get myself a C, a D, and an F over the last 12 visits. Like, all right. But can I help you with that? And if I can support you and love you through that, what did you just do? You built a relationship with somebody that can trust you. Otherwise, you know what they're going to do? They're going to lie to you and they're saying, A. You're like, come on, seriously? It's not an A. I know you haven't been doing everything as prescribed. But the trust relationship, they will actually tell you what's really going on. Hey, doc, I'm really struggling with this. Your staff, they'll tell your staff. You're going to build this culture where your patients will trust you. They'll entrust to you their life, their story, their health journey, their family, the community. The fruit of this is exponential growth of your business and your practice. I promise you that. And a culture and an environment where people, your team, they're going to love working there. They're going to love you. You're going to love them. You're going to love your patients. It's a culture that, honestly, in my opinion, it's an unstoppable force. So this transformation, Dr. Stephen, that we get to make is so vital.
Just listening to you, Dr. Pete, I have this, just this image in my mind of just having a high bar, right? So, and of course the high bar is for you first, right? Like we've got to set a really high bar for ourselves, because we could never call others to do something we're not doing, right? So whether it's our team or our patients, our kids, right? So it's just, at the end of the day, people are watching, right? They pay attention. What they're looking for is your behavior, your walk. And this by no means is a call to perfection. It is not, right? Mm-hmm. So remarkable does not imply it over and over again, because we want to make sure that you do not try to take on the yoke of perfection, right? So at the end of the day, just progression, not perfection, and just recognize that wherever you are right now with this, it's about moving forward and just do better every day, right? So better decisions every day, setting that bar really high for yourself first. And you're going to watch how the people that are following you as their leader, they're going to get up and over that bar. It's amazing, right? So they will hear 1/20th of what you say, but they'll watch 100% of what you do. And they're just going to watch for your consistency. So if you're looking for how do I build trust, it's just, the words that we love to throw around when we have our core values conversations around trust and integrity and consistency, right? So it's the consistency piece of it. Do what you say you're going to do, right? So if somebody hires you to be their doctor, to be their chiropractor, to be their coach, to be their Sherpa, be the Sherpa. That's like literally what they're hiring you to do. If you start thinking about it that way, it's like, you want people to like you. They're going to love you if you do your job that they're paying you to do. Don't get wonky with it. Don't screw up that relationship. Just know that when you start in the beginning with that intensity, you're setting expectations and agreements. Ask for permission, right? So ask for permission and take that opportunity. It's an implied permission when somebody's hiring you to be their doctor, but ask them directly, right? So I would regularly stand in front of a group report of findings or group recommendations of care of the workshop, and I'd say, well, spend any time here at this clinic, you've probably figured out that I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to make a difference. Right? So I look around the room and everybody would laugh when I say that, because, I'm naturally a bit of a pain in the ass, right? So, and I was like, okay, that's going to be my role in your life, right? I'm a tough coach. And people wanted that. And there was levity to that. I would laugh, and it was my way of poking fun at myself. And what I was doing was setting a standard. And then I would look at everybody after they laugh, and I'd be like, so permission to be your pain in the ass. Like, I'm going to come alongside you, and it's going to be hugs and high fives or headlocks, whatever it takes to help you reach your goals. That's my purpose in your life. It's my purpose in this clinic. It's my purpose on this planet, to serve God by helping others realize their potential as they heal, learn, and grow with me. So do I have your permission, right? So talk about like setting the bar high. And what I learned, Dr. Pete, was the busier you get, the higher your bar. And the higher your bar, the busier you get. Okay, so for some of you, this is exactly what you need to hear right now as we get ready to take on second quarter. We want to make a bigger impact. We want to make a bigger income. And we all know the truth. What the world needs right now is chiropractic. And what chiropractic needs right now is more successful chiropractors. I will suggest it's the chiropractor who's here not to make friends, but to make a difference.
Please stick around for more business insights from this week's bonus interview with our remarkable success partner, dedicated to helping you more successfully help more people. Enjoy. All right, CEOs. So today I'm honored to be in the studio, virtual studio, with a new friend of mine, a colleague of all of ours, and a CEO, a chiropractor, a CEO, and someone who is clearly on the mission to help chiropractors help more people. Dr. Steve Tullius from Waitlist Workshops. Doc Steve, thanks for taking the time to join with me here today for this special expert interview. I'm looking forward to digging deep with you and helping our docs figure out how we can help reach more people. So welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much, Pete. It's great getting to know you, and I know we are on the same mission of helping the masses get more access to chiropractic care. So thanks for having me here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wished that, when I was actively in practice, that what you did existed at the time, but I've always had a passion for doing workshops, and so it was a huge part of my practice, my entire career, as well as Dr. Franson as well. So I know this is something, when we learned about what you were doing, we said, oh man, if we can align with this guy, this would be amazing. And then when we met, we were actually introduced through another CEO that we work with, Dr. Justin Brown, down in Florida, and he connected us. And from our first moment, it was like, yeah, we're supposed to work together. Let's figure this out. Let's get going. So you are a actual success partner, just so everyone who's listening understands. So in the Remarkable Practice, there are certain businesses that meet the standard of criteria of being a success partner, which basically means, hey, we are endorsing you. We are saying to our doctors that we get to work with, hey, you should strongly consider working with these people. This is their product or service. So that is what you do in the Waitlist Workshops. So we're going to get into the details of what you're doing now. But before we do, so I want the audience to know that's why you're here, and what you guys are doing is just awesome. So I'd love for you to give the audience a little bit of a backstory about, you and your journey, your chiropractic journey, and then also obviously into what you're doing now, in addition to everything you're doing in your chiropractic practices. So I'll let you kind of take the mic and run with it. And then I've got some questions I'd love to ask you here today.
Awesome. Thank you, Pete. This, like you, I wish there had been something like what we have now for doctors. It's basically a plug and play workshop marketing system. I built my practice off of workshops, and if you look at our profession, it's such a necessity to educate, right, the public. If they have a positive impression about chiropractic, they think it's primarily good for neck and back pain. So we have so much education that we have to do. So. But I used to be definitely afraid of public speaking. It was not my forte, but I knew at one point, I forget where I was listening to a speaker, and I realized finally that I didn't have the luxury of not standing up and speaking out, with the information that we have as chiropractors. So I just started doing it. I started doing them, and I got really good at it, and others saw what I was doing, asked if I would do it for them. And that's how the whole company started. But really, my story really goes back to my son too. My son, at the age of 4.5, developed something known as PANDAS or PANS, which is a pediatric encephalitis that causes just a horrible life experience. And we didn't know what was going on with him at the time. Spent years trying to figure that out, but in the process got really into this neurodevelopmental world, and that's where my practice really started to focus. I started doing talks around neurodevelopment, and that's when colleagues saw this, where we were regularly getting 15, 20 people to my talks every month, and we started doing that in multiple areas. So we then branched out into other topics. Everything I do, I want the public to really understand what chiropractic is, that it can help the sick get well, and help not only help them get well, but help us all, like all the chiropractors listening, really experience optimal potential too. So we started branching into other topics like mental health, which is really a massive topic for society. Especially after what COVID did to our nation and the world, and into like autoimmune, epilepsy, really some of the big challenges that our profession always used to address, and really arguably is probably the reason why we still are around, because of the miracle, quote, miracle cases that we used to always help, but but because of insurance and other factors, our profession got railroaded and pigeonholed into musculoskeletal only. So that's a quick rundown of who I am and my mission and how my practice then evolved, to having this company that helps doctors put on workshops too.
Beautiful. One of the questions I was going to ask you was in regards to, what problems you solve. And I love hearing your story. First of all, I didn't know that about you and your family with your son. And that's, I know that's been a lot just for you to walk through. And obviously that's not our topic for today, but just from a father's perspective, I love speaking to men, fathers, parents, how you navigate things like that while you're also running a practice. There's a lot of layers to that. But here's the cool thing, which I love about your story, is that, you were able to allow the issue, the challenge, the problem that you were navigating. Actually, you used it as a catalyst to then help reach more people. And you didn't go internal, you went outside of yourself, which is really awesome. And I'm so thankful and grateful that you did that you allowed this challenge that you faced, which you had to navigate personally, but you allowed that to ignite within you, the fire that you wanted to go now and reach more people, and then using the platform and getting out of your comfort zone. Like you clearly said, this wasn't like something my strength. I didn't come out like, oh, I love speaking. And actually I don't, but it needs to be done. And, that I love the genesis of this whole story and where it started from, and now to see what's happening. Cause I actually have multiple doctors that I work with personally who are using the service of Waitlist Workshops to grow their practices, make a bigger impact, reaching the community. And it's unbelievable. It's so amazing. And I'm so fired up about it. So thank you for that. And just awesome story. And I'm loving the fact that you are now impacting exponentially because of your response to the need. So every business exists to solve a problem, right? And you are solving a problem. So you've identified specific issues in the communities where chiropractors serve, where we can actually reach and be the voice and become the expert, the authority. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, so let's say I'm listening to this, I'm a CEO and I don't do a lot of external marketing talks. We've never really done them, or maybe we did them in the past, but we haven't done it, especially since the pandemic, something like that.
Right.
So speak to me a little bit about the problem, that your business Waitlist Workshop is solving. So there's obviously multiple things, but let's just kind of summarize it. Like, here are the issues and here's how we solve it. So yeah.
Yeah. So, we solve really, one of the biggest challenges in chiropractic right now, which is bringing in really high quality leads. There's a lot of systems out there that bring in, people who may be underqualified or tire kickers and things like that. And so that's one problem we solve. We bring people right to the doctor. All they have to do is give us a time, date, and location and be ready to speak to a room full of people. Now, the second component of that, and this is what I get excited about, right? Is that it's attracting people with these massive needs, right? So the three core topics of types of people we address, those three topics actually represent 65% of our nation, right? Issues with neurodevelopment, so autism, sensory processing disorder, ADHD, anxiety, mental health, anxiety, depression, PTSD, and autoimmune issues, fibromyalgia, MS, all these chronic diseases, and we don't position it in a treatment perspective. All of it's presented in a subluxation-based, philosophically centered, salutogenic perspective. But those three core workshops that our doctors are giving actually represent 65% of our nation, right? So what I always tell people is that there's no shortage of sick people, right?
Yep.
Unfortunately, there's a massive need. However, there's no demand, right? For us, right? There's a demand for the medics down the street, but so what we're doing is we're trying to flip the whole script, right? And change it and create a demand for a massive need out there and funnel people into the chiropractic setting. And the next piece that I love about this, and this is why I did it, focus on these topics in my practice too, is because when their neighbors, when people start hearing about how chiropractic helps a child begin to speak who wasn't speaking, or helped individual who had crippling anxiety, helped their anxiety go away, or someone who had seizures, helped their seizures go away. That completely flips the script of chiropractic being about neck pain and back pain, and brings it into the realm of the nervous system and where we really shine. So I believe, just like I know you do, that that chiropractic could transform the whole socioeconomic power struggle of humanity, right? And if we could get the big idea actualized, boy, what a different world it would be. So that's the big purpose. I know I went off a little bit, but in terms of what we solve, we help bring in high quality leads and help bring people that helps the chiropractor gain more certainty and confidence as they see the miracles that are happening. And they also gives them just a whole lot more satisfaction in practice. Not that there's not satisfaction in helping people with neck pain and back pain and these problems, but I know in talking with many docs over the years that they want to be seeing more of the quote unquote miracle cases. They want these people, but they just don't know how to attract them. We developed a system that beautifully attracts these people into practices and helps doctors get to really experience that of joy and beauty of practice.
Well, I love that you let it rip there. I like that you went off for a minute. So thank you for that. This is a perfect platform for you to kind of loosen the gaskets a little bit and let it go. I appreciate that and your passion. So thank you. And it was crystal clear. And I didn't know some of those numbers. I know that we have obviously a chronically diseased nation, but the fact that you've chosen specific topics that'll hit north of 60% of anyone's population in the surrounding area is, and to bring in that high quality lead to meet the doctor, and then they get to see you and they see you immediately as the expert and the authority and a voice from a totally different angle, which they probably never heard before from all the other docs they've been seeing and hearing. So, wow, that's just so cool. And I love that. And being someone who did a lot of talks myself, but also coming out of school, didn't feel like I should speak or had any gift or any desire. I was actually afraid of that. That was something I had a fear of, like everybody says, but I actually did. That was significant. So to hear you say that you could do that, because that's always the hardest thing, butts and seats, right? That was always the challenge for me. And my team was always, hey, we're going to do this, but we got to get butts and seats. And so I love that. So, obviously, we're talking business here. So CEOs on the other side of the line. So talk a little bit about what we're seeing numbers wise. I know you've done a lot of workshops, but talk a little bit about docs that you say, hey, all right, we're going to hire you, doc. We want to work with Waitlist. What kind of things are we seeing? Just, general numbers, whatever you feel comfortable sharing. But, what kind of things are we seeing as far as, attendance, getting to workshops? What's the ideal numbers? What are we looking at? Are you guys tracking at all the number of conversions, people booking appointments, and then people actually getting started in care? And then even further than that, the outcomes. It's all about results, like you said, the miracle stories. Well, we don't have to go all the way that far down the line, but if you went ROI, just attendance to booking, and then once they book, they come in, they see him. Talk me through just a little bit of what can a doctor expect? What are some of the things you're seeing in 2023?
Yeah, so we've helped doctors give over 6,000 workshops, so we have lots of data. Our averages now, and they keep improving because the longer we do this, the better we get at it too. So right now we're averaging 45 leads per workshop. Now we have a lot of docs, even just like last week, had 100, 91, 78. But we know that the average is going to be north of 45. Based upon show rates will be between 20 to 30%. And that's been consistent for the last 8 years that we've been doing this. It will be more in certain regions of the country. But that 20 to 30% we know is where it's going to be. So based upon those numbers, we know that somewhere between 10 to 15 people will be in attendance. Now, just last week in my office, I had 24 in attendance and I scheduled 17 new patients. It was a fantastic event. I'm looking at some survey results because we have our docs fill out a survey the following day. And so we see docs here, 22 in attendance, 9 new patients, 26 in attendance, 13 new patients. We know that average doc is, on all of our workshops, average number of new patients is going to be 5. Now, we know that the docs that are doing the best have the best systems already. That's why we see docs like yours, Dr. Justin Brown, and
Yep.
others who are getting coaching, have been through and done a lot of work in other areas. They're getting the best results. They're the best closers. They're getting the best signups. But even in our entire system, though, the average doc will have 5 new patients. So based upon that and a case average of 3,000, which is pretty conservative, then they're looking at an average return on investment of 4 to 7 times. A doc like myself, or is really experienced, or Justin Brown or others who are consistently getting double-digit new patients, and that's definitely possible with a workshop system like this. They're typically seeing somewhere around 9 to 12x returns. So this is why, I used to have a website company as well, and we did search engine optimization, and we did some other things. Once we really got everything nailed down with workshops, we just stopped doing every other type of marketing, because the return on investment was so much more effective with workshop marketing, because you're bringing in high quality people, and they're sitting down in front of you for an hour. At that point, once they say yes to an exam, they've already bought. I've found most docs typically are actually messing up by trying to still sell that person once they've come to the exam. Once they've signed up for an exam and gone through your talk, now we just need to do the exam and tell them, here's what's next. Unfortunately, a lot of times, sometimes docs are trying to sell people afterwards, but they've already bought, and they end up selling them out of care a lot of times.
Man, that's I can feel that and see that happening. So really, really important point. I'll make a point that's, I think, really relevant too, especially for our CEOs listening, as an example. So I know that some of the CEOs that we work with who are using Waitlist Workshops aren't even the ones doing the talk. They have an associate doctor or another expert on their team actually could be delivering the talk. So think about you're leveraging Waitlist Workshops to help bring high quality leads. And then another team member from your team who is energized around doing the talks, if you wanted, can actually deliver the talk. And so it's just, to me, it's an incredible point, a leverage point, to leverage an expert like you and Waitlist Workshops to actually help you organize the right topic and get the people, butts in seats and doing all that. And then the deliverable of the actual talk itself, you can do it, but you can also outsource that. If you're listening, and a lot of our CEOs are thinking through this, like, how do we do this? We have multiple locations and things like that. It's like, yeah, you can do that 100%. And so I love that. And that's a big deal. And then, so continuing with this. So, I want to talk about the future, because you just talked about it when you talked about the website, and then you said, wait a second, like, I want to put all my energy here. So we just came through the pandemic. And when we went through the pandemic, I know for us, we had to scramble, because so many of our marketing strategies were external marketing. And then all of a sudden, shut down worldwide. And so, now that things have opened back up and people are starting to like dip their toe in doing outside things again, it's amazing how slow like that people have just begun getting those going again. Docs, this is an incredible way for you to immediately get back into the marketplace and do that. So can you talk a little bit about what you're seeing as far as real time, like now, because you gave some numbers, but also in the future, as you think about, the tech, everything that's going on with technology and artificial intelligence and all these things, and the relevance of actually being in the community physically in front of people doing this. Can you talk about what you see in the future, and how you see teaching and workshops and these things in the future, not just even in the present? Love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely have done a lot of thought around this and consulted with different thought leaders, around that topic. Clearly we saw after the pandemic, we clearly saw an increase in desire of people to get out and be doing things in person. Now, I will just share that throughout the pandemic, we actually grew considerably, because while a lot of things went away, workshops didn't go away, because even though people were afraid to go out, no one was going to attack a doctor for trying to help some of the sickest of the sick, people that were in crisis far before that planned crisis ever showed up. So our docs actually did really well during the pandemic using workshops. Now, with the future, with AI being so prevalent and people not being sure what they can trust, both in video and image format and everything, you're going to find that people are going to really want to be in person, in front of a real person, so that they can see and hear that person and know that what they're hearing and seeing is something that's actually trustworthy. So our feelings, and based upon what we're seeing and hearing from a lot of people in the AI industry too, is that people are going to really demand more of this and want more of in-person connection when we get more and more into this AI-driven, society.
I love it. And I'm in agreement. I feel that way. And I have also witnessed that in my own personal journey and in others, that whether it's personally or professionally. And I did not know that, but it makes a whole lot of sense now, what you just said about the fact that we grew during the pandemic doing workshops. That's awesome. I love that. And I think it's a point that needs to be noted. So no matter what comes our way from a health craziness perspective and economic craziness perspective, the relevance of an expert, an authority speaking on a topic that's important, very important to me, and me being able to meet you in person so I can see who is this person, can I trust them? All of that can be accomplished with this one mechanism, this strategy, which I absolutely love. So I could keep talking. We could go on and on. I know that our docs can get in contact with you and have more conversations specifically. So let's do that. So what's the best way for anybody who's listening to this to learn more, get in contact with you, or even take a next step? What's the best next step, Stop?
Yeah, so the next best step is to go to our website and set up a call so we can chat. So our website is www.waitlistworkshops.com. There's a calendar to set up a call and see if this is a good fit. And for anyone, and I know this because we've been chatting. I know many of your doctors who are in your program. I know what you guys represent with your coaching. I know that the majority of anyone listening to this actually is probably one of the best fits for what we do. And we want docs who are fired up, who are subluxation based, who want to transform their community, not just their communities, but the world. And so that's what we're looking for. We don't want to just fill zip codes. Like, that's not what our objective is. Waitlistworkshops.com. I'm super accessible. So shoot me a DM on Instagram or Facebook, Steve Tullius, and would love to meet and chat and see how we can help, you help even more people out there.
Amen. Well, Steve, thanks for joining me. Thanks for taking the time today to meet with me and to be an expert guest on our Remarkable CEO podcast. We highly value being able to speak with you and to have your expertise here. Thank you for being a remarkable success partner as well, and looking forward to continue to serve and grow with you and help more doctors, help more people. So, and for all of you who are listening, thanks for tuning in. This is another episode of the Remarkable CEO podcast. Until next week, take care and God bless.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Remarkable CEO podcast. Remember, what the world needs now is chiropractic. And what chiropractic needs now is more successful chiropractors. If you like this podcast, please subscribe, share with a friend, and leave us a review. And if you'd like to connect with us personally, direct message us on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram. Now go and be remarkable.